Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. The topic that we are going to see today is control statements. So what are control statements? Control statements enable us to specify the flow of program control. It specifies the order in which the instructions in a program must be executed. They make it possible to make decisions, to perform tasks repeatedly, or to jump from one section of a code to another. So there are four types of control statements in C. The first one is decision-making statements. The next one is selection statements. Then we have iteration statements. And the last one is the jump statements. But for this lecture, we are going to see the first two, decision-making statements and the selection statements. Now, moving on to the decision-making statements. So these statements are used to choose amongst alternatives based on conditions. So it can be classified into different types. The first one is the simple if else. Then we have the simple if. Then we have nested if else. Then we have the if else ladder. Okay. And lastly, we have the nested if. So we are going to see these types only, but other than this, there can be many types as well. Okay. So moving on to the simple if else. Now a simple if else selects one out of two possibilities. So here we have the syntax of a simple if else. Okay, so here we have a if, then we put a condition. Now if this condition is satisfied, then this statement will be executed. Okay, and if this condition is not satisfied, then it will go to else. Okay, and then this statement will be executed. So a simple if else is used to select one out of the two possibilities. Now let us see an example. Say for example, we have two integers, integer a and integer b, right? And the value of integer a is a equals to 5 and b equals to 10. Now we want to print the value which is greater amongst them. Okay, so we can write a condition, right? If a greater than b, then we use the printf function. Okay, so we need to use a parenthesis, right? The second bracket. So we use a parenthesis and we write our statement. So we use the statement printf to print a, right? So we print %d a. Okay, we have printed a. But if this statement is not satisfied, then we need to write the else as well. So in our else statement, what will be there? We will be printing b, right? So we will be printing b now. Since b is the bigger number, since this statement will be, if this statement is satisfied or not, okay, depending on that, we will be executing either this statement or this statement. So this is how we use the if else statement. Now as you can see in this statement, we are also using this parenthesis, okay, the second bracket, in order to enclose our statement. So this is one thing that you have to keep in mind, so that code is structured, right? So that you can understand which statement you want to execute. And also one other thing to keep in mind is that for if, you write a condition, but in else you don't have to write any condition. So if this condition is satisfied, then this statement will be executed, and if this is not satisfied, then it will directly go to this statement. Now here I have given that you can use either a single or multiple conditions. So you could have given, for example, if a greater than b, you could have also written if a greater than b or a not equals to 0, something like this. Okay, so you can use multiple conditions over here as well. Now a simple if, so rather than a if else, you can also use a simple if to choose to execute a particular statement. Say for example, you want to check if a is a odd number or an even number. So if you want to check if a is a odd number or even number, you can simply write a modulus of 2, okay, equals to 0. So by this mod, if a is a even number, then the mod result will be 0, right? So if it's an even number, then you need to print, yes, printf a is even, right? Okay, so this is how you can check if a is even or not. You can simply write only one if. You don't have to write the else. Okay, so this is also one method of using the simple if. Now let us move on to the nested if else condition. So sometimes we need to check one condition only when some other condition is satisfied. So in that case, we can have an if else construction inside another if else. So let us see the syntax of this if else condition. So as you can see from this, that we have one if, right, and we have another else. So this is the normal if else, but inside this if we have a nested if and a nested else, right? And again inside this else we have a nested if else. Okay, so what happens is if this condition is satisfied, okay, then the next statement will be executed. Now, if this condition number 2 is satisfied, then part A will be executed. And if this is not satisfied, then part B will be executed. So if this condition 1 is not satisfied, then the compiler will not execute the next statement. Rather, it will go to the else part, right? Now, after this, it goes to the else part, it will move on to the next statement and it will check condition 3. Now, if this condition 3 is satisfied, then part C will be executed. And if this is not satisfied, then it will move on to else and part D will be executed. So this is how the statements are executed, okay? So let us imagine an example. Now, let us assume that we have three variables. So the three variables that we have are a, B, and temp. Okay, so these are the three variables that we have. Now we declare the variable temp and we assign it a number. We assign the number 10 to temp, right? Now from the user, we want to take two inputs, and the two inputs that we will be taking are of A and B. So I have not written the full. Just imagine that we are taking two user inputs. And then what will happen is we will be using this nested if else condition. Now let us write a condition if, okay, and we check if A is greater than B or not. So if A is greater than B, then we will move on to this next statement, and then we will check another condition, and that condition is to check if A is a even number or not. So if A is an even number, then what we will do, we will be multiplying that number with temp and storing the value in temp again. So that is what we are doing. So this is our part A, okay, that I have shown in the code. So this is the part A here, right? This is the part A. Now, if A is not an even number, what we want to do is we want to add 1 with A, right? We want to add 1 with A to make it an even number. So it will go to the next statement. If this statement is not satisfied and if A is an odd number, then it will come here in else, right? And in else, what we want to do, we want to increment the value of A by 1. So what we can do that, how we can do that? We can just use plus plus A, right? So using this prefix increment operator, we are incrementing the value of A by 1, okay, making it an even number and then multiplying it with temp. Okay, now if this statement, if A is not greater than B, in that case, what is going to happen? So let me erase this, okay, and let me write else, the else statement, and let's see what we can get, okay. So now writing the else part. So in this else part, if A is not greater than B, then it will come to this part, okay? And in this else part, we will write the condition if B, since A is not greater than B, then it is suggesting that B is greater than A, right? So we will be using B and checking if B is a even number or not. If B is an even number, then what we will do? We will use the temp, okay, and we will be multiplying temp with B like we did earlier, okay. And if B is not an even number, then in this else, what we want to do, we want to increment the value of B by 1 and then multiply it with temp, right? So plus plus B, right? So this is what we are doing, okay. So this is our nested if else condition. Now moving on to the nested if. So sometimes we write nested if else constructions without any else parts. So previously we have seen a nested if else. Now if we don't want to write this else part, then we can also do that. So let us see how this syntax is. So you can see here we are using one if and we are not using any else here, right? As you can see, no else is here. So we are using if and we are using a condition. If this condition is satisfied, then maybe some statements can be there. Okay, after some statements we can also check, we can also use another if condition to check if that statement is satisfying or not. Then we can implement that statement, right? And then again after this we can use another if to check another condition, and after checking that condition we can execute some statements. Okay, so this is how to use nested if. Now say for example, say if I have three variables, okay, and the variables are a, temp, okay, temp, say temp equals to 10, okay, then I have another variable, say r, okay. Then what I want to do is I have taking the user input for a and r. Okay, now I will check if a is an odd number or not, odd or even number or not. So if a is a even number, then this condition is satisfied, right? So if this condition is satisfied, then let me execute some statements. Say temp equals to temp divided by 2. Okay, so this is the statement that I want to execute. Now I want to check if this temp is an even or odd number. Okay, so if this temp is an odd number divided by 2, okay, equals to 1, then I will execute another statement. And the statement that I will be executing is, say in r, I will be taking r and adding it with temp. Okay, then after I have executed this statement, okay, what I want to do is I want to check if this r is a even number or odd number, right? So I want to check if this r is even or not. If this r is even, then I want to, okay, then I want to execute another statement. And what is that statement? That statement is r equals to r into 2. So this is just examples. Okay, so now you can see I have used this parenthesis, right? So I have to close them as well, right? So for this I will be closing it with a this one, right? For this I will be closing it with this one, and for this parenthesis I'll be again closing it with this one. So as you can see, for this parenthesis I have this one, for this one I have this, and for this I have this and this. So this is how you can implement your nested if. Now moving on to the if-else ladder. Now sometimes we need to check multiple conditions to execute a single statement. So here you can see we have the if and the else if as well, right? So this is the if else if ladder. So if you want to say check condition 1, you are using if. Now if you want to use if you want to check condition 2, then you are using a else if. Okay, and then say if you want to check say condition 3, this will be condition 3, okay, then you'll be using another else if, and this will proceed on up to else. Okay, so the syntax here stands as you will be using if to check one condition. If this condition is not satisfied, then it will be moving on to this one. And in this else if, so you see we are using a new term here, else if. So using this else if, you can check a condition. So previously for else, we couldn't have checked any condition, but for else if, you can use you can check a condition. So here you have condition 2, right, for else if. Then if this is satisfied, then you execute this statement 2. If this is not satisfied, then you move on to the next else if. Now if this condition 3 is satisfied, okay, you execute this statement, and if this is not satisfied, you move on to the next else if. So in this manner you can have multiple else if. So let us see an example. Now in my example, what I want to see is if say I have a value integer x, okay, I'm taking a user input for value x, okay, so for value x I'm taking a user input. So I'm not writing the full thing, I'm just writing scanf x here. Okay, now I want to check if x is equals to 1. So if x is equals to 1, then I will print that x is 1. Okay, okay, now if x is not equals to 1, I want to again check if else if x is equals to 2. Then I will printf x is 2, right? So this is what I will print. Then again I will choose another else if, and I will check if x is equals to 3 or not. Then I will print that x is 3. Okay, and if x doesn't fall within 1, 2, 3, right, then within an else, okay, let me erase this and show. Within an x I will be writing else printf x is not within boundary, okay, something like that. So this is how you can use the if else ladder. Okay, so using this in a continuous fashion is why it is known as a ladder. Now moving on to the next control statement, which is a selection statement, and it is switch. So this switch is a statement that is used to select one out of multiple options. So this is the syntax for switch, and in this syntax the first thing that you can see is the keyword switch is used, right? So the keywords are colored with greens so that it is easier for you to understand. Now here in switch, within a bracket, I'm writing a controlling expression. Okay, so as I've mentioned, this switch is a statement that is used to select one out of multiple options. So soon you will see with an example how this is implemented. But for now, let us see how this syntax is formed. Okay, so in this switch, we will have a controlling expression. So this controlling expression can be an integer expression or a character, but it can't be a floating point number or strings. Okay, so this can be either an integer, okay, say integer x, okay, or it can be either a character, say character a, like this. Okay, but it cannot be floating numbers like float. It can't be this float, or strings, it can't be float or strings. Okay, it can't be this too. Now after this we use similar to our if decision making statements, we use a parenthesis, right? So within this parenthesis we are writing another keyword, which is the case, right? And this is a keyword that we must write always. Then after case we are writing a constant expression. And what is this constant expression? This constant expression is similar to ordinary expression. Here the characters and integers are acceptable, like this, x and a. So here what we need to write is we need to write the expression like 1. If it is 1, we need to write 1. For characters we need to write a. Okay, we can write it like this. Again, we can also write it like 5 plus 10 for this constant expression. But what we cannot write n plus 10, because here n is a variable. So we need to write a constant expression. Okay, after this constant expression we use this colon, right? Then after this colon we write a statement that we want to execute. So how is this implemented? Now if this constant expression and the controller expression matches, then we execute this statement. Only then we execute this statement. So if, say for example, this constant expression and the controlling expression matches, then we execute this statement. Okay, afterwards, after executing this statement, we will be executing all these statements. Okay, all of these statements. But as you can see, I have used a break here. Now this break is optional. Let us see how is this break coming. Okay, but before that, what I want to say is the duplicate case labels are not allowed. So what does this mean? So say for example, here I'm writing a constant expression. In this constant expression, say for example, I have written 1. So you cannot use another constant expression where you have written 1 here. So this duplicacy is not allowed. Okay, now coming to the break part. So this break is optional, right? So here, why do we give break? Break is given in order to break from this switch. So if we give break, then we are breaking from this switch statement and going here to the next statement after switch. So we are giving break in order to break from switch, or else every line will be executed, okay, after we find a match. So after a match is found, we know that every statement, okay, in each line we will be having statements. All of those statements will be executed. So in order not to execute all of this statement, we use a break. So let us see an example of switch. So here you can see that I have written a whole code so that you guys can understand better how to use switch. Now here what I have given is I have declared a character, right? I have declared a character variable named grade, and I have assigned a value of grade b, okay, equals to b. So here should be a semicolon, right? Okay. So what I'm using here is I'm using a switch. Okay, I'm using this switch selection statement, and in this switch I'm writing the controlling expression. So the controlling expression is grade, and grade is a character, so this is okay, because in switch I can give either a character or an integer, right? So after doing this, I will be introducing this to, which are my parentheses. Then after I have introduced the parentheses, I will be going to the next line, which is my case. This is after writing this case keyword, I will be writing the constant expression. Now, a grade can be of A, B, C, D, and F, right? So here my constant expressions are A, B, C, D, and F. Okay, so these are my constant expression. Now, in this constant expression, firstly, I have given the grade as A, right? Now, if this controlling expression matches with the constant expression, then this statement will be executed and it will print excellent. Okay. And after printing excellent, it will go to the next statement and it will break from this switch. If my grade is B or C, then what will be happening is if it's B, okay, then here we can see no statement is written. So what it will do is it will go to the next statement, right? And it will print well done. So for B, it will be printing well done, and for C as well, it will be printing well done. Then it will again go to the next statement and it will find a break here. So since it finds a break, now my program will be breaking from this switch statement and it will be going to this statement here, right? It will be going to this statement. So similarly, if we have, say, our grade is D and it matches with this grade, then it will be printing you passed, and then it will be going to the next statement and it will be breaking. Okay. And lastly, if we have, say, F, if our grade is F, it will be printing failed. Okay. And then it will go to the next line and it will be seeing here we have used a break. So it will be breaking from this switch statement. And if the grade doesn't match any of this, then then the default keyword will be triggered and it will print invalid grade. Then it will go to the next statement and it will see that nothing is there, so it will be breaking out from it. Now after I have broken out from the switch statement, I am printing your grade is %c n, and I'm printing the grade here. Okay, and I'm finishing it with a return 0. So from this example, can you tell me what will be the output? So for my grade, I have B, right? So for B, what should be there? For B, if this is satisfied, it will find that here no statement is there, so it will go to the next statement. It will be printing well done, and then it will be breaking. After it breaks, from here, it will go all the way to here, and it will print your grade is B. So let us see. So firstly, for B, it will be printing well done. You see, well done here. And then it will be printing your grade is B. Your grade is B. Thank you. This will be all for today. Hope you have enjoyed and understood the class.